Hi, I'm Patrick Prince with the Tulsa World, joined by Kelly Hines, our TU beat writer. And this is the Christmas edition of our little TU video that she and I are going to do every week. This is the second one we're going to be doing. So you can check out today and check out future ones in the future. So Kelly, football season's now over. Help me understand something. I still don't know who this team is. Is this the team that struggled against UC Davis and sort of no-showed against Houston, or is this the team that ended 7-6, won a bowl game, and won their final four games? Who are they?
This is such a great question. I don't know that that's an easy question to answer. I do think that you have to kind of assess teams by what they've done more recently. So I definitely feel like the way Tulsa ended the season, that's maybe more of a realistic assessment of what this team was. You know, I felt like in the early going, you know, they obviously were shorthanded against UC Davis because of the bowl brawl, which fortunately we did not have another one of those this year. But, you know, I felt like that kind of led to that outcome. But then, you know, the performances against Ohio State, Oklahoma State, and Cincinnati, I felt like Tulsa, you know, played really well in those games, but not in a really surprising way to me, because I felt like they had that potential. Certainly as an underdog team, I felt like going on the road in those environments and maybe, you know, surprising people nationally or even regionally or locally, I felt like they were the type of team that could do that. But I definitely felt like this is a team that could win some games, could get some momentum going in the second half of the season, and they did that. And, you know, to finish with 4 consecutive wins, not many teams can say that they have a winning streak at the end of the season. So I think that was impressive that the team stuck together the way that it did, because they easily could have not done that. It would have been really easy to you know, just kind of pack it in when you start 1-4. And so I thought it was just impressive the way they hung together. Not always super pretty, but you know, there were a lot of key moments in key games that you know, led to ultimately what was a winning season.
Yeah. I was looking back at their schedule in preparation for this video, and I sort of forgot that they were within 8 at Ohio State in the fourth quarter. I knew they were close at one point, and then Ohio State kind of tacked it on later, but that was an 8-point game in the fourth quarter. Like,
I mean, it's crazy, especially when, you know, at the time you're thinking, oh, Ohio State, we don't really know what they're all about. And they, you know, certainly struggled early on in their season, but then went on to have a really good season. Same with obviously Oklahoma State and Cincinnati. But, you know, to be in games against, you know, 3 of the top teams in the country this season, it just was a weird year. And that's just kind of how Tulsa is in a given year. You don't really know what to expect. And it's hard not to get too caught up in any given outcome, because they're the type of team that could be in a game with just about anybody, but also struggle against literally anybody. And so it, you know, going back to your first question, just makes it hard to kind of figure out who they are, you know, and what the issue is against teams that they should beat and they struggle against. So it's like you can go to Ohio State and Oklahoma State and Cincinnati and be in those games. Why can't you compete that same way against everybody else? Why can't you beat Navy? Why did you perform so poorly against Houston? I mean, you can go down the list of the schedule. Just that's kind of the frustrating aspect of this team. If you can perform that way against those teams, you should be able to do that against other teams, but it just doesn't always happen that way.
is there a game or a play or a moment that stands out for you this season?
I think, you know, what stands out, other than the performances, you know, on the road against those 3 teams, really the SMU game, you know, the last game of the regular season, you know, Tulsa needed to win that game to make it to the bowl game. And that was something that had so much meaning for this team. And things were not going well at all. You know, it was very cold and rainy and just a miserable performance, you know, up until late in the second half or in the first half. It was just a few minutes before halftime. And Tulsa gets going on this this drive that ends with a touchdown. And then is able to score again right before halftime, and then gets the ball to open the second half and scores again. And then it's, there was obviously some stuff that happened later in the game, but at that point, everything changed and it just completely flipped. It went from being, everything going against Tulsa to everything going in Tulsa's favor. And they were able to win that game against, I know SMU had their stuff going on at the time with their coach on the way out and all of that, but SMU was a good team this season. And that was such a big win for TU, not just because of the bowl eligibility, just to go and beat a team like that on the road. I just thought that was a really impressive turnaround in that game. It's difficult to do when everything is going against you and you're just able to flip a switch. But that's kind of what this team is capable of. You just don't always see it happen that way.
Yeah. Let's talk about Davis Brin for a second. I think some of us expected greatness after his performance against Tulane 2 seasons ago. That was triple overtime, right?
I think it was double overtime.
Double overtime. Yeah, he was obviously amazing coming off the bench. This season as a starter, he was inconsistent at best. What can you say about his play and kind of his development over the season?
Yeah, he had some good moments. He had some bad moments. It's not really ideal to lead the nation in interceptions. Not all of those were his fault. Obviously, there were some fluke type plays in there, but I think there were just moments when it was kind of hard to watch, and he never really lost sight of his progression. It wasn't always, on the same trajectory, but there were definitely like hiccups along the way. The game at Tulane was really difficult for him. And I just remember seeing him after the game, like talking to his position coach. He was just, even though Tulsa won that game, he knew it was just not a good performance for him. And I don't remember how many turnovers he had in that game. It was, I think, maybe 3. Anyway, not really what he's capable of. And I just remember seeing him like so just down, but he never got too caught up in it. During games especially, he'd go right back out there. Throw a pick 6 and go right back out there and go back to work. And that's really difficult. And especially when the team is struggling, obviously the starting quarterback is going to carry so much weight of that. And even though he, has been the program for 4 years, this is his first year in this role. And I think we all had really high expectations, but it's hard when, those expectations are there. Whereas, in that Tulane game in 2020, you're not like thinking you're going to be going into that game. So you're number 3 on the depth chart and you just go out there and ball out, and it worked out really well. But, when you're the guy on every play and it's not going well, that's completely different. So, I really was impressed with how he carried himself, how he, owned up to his mistakes and in interviews. He just was really impressive. He just went back to work every time he failed. And it's just, that's so difficult to do. You can expect a quarterback to do that, but to actually see it happen that way. And he had so many incredible throws and incredible plays. It's just, the not so great plays are obviously going to stand out. But I felt like he put the team in good, especially down the stretch, put them in good situations and made things happen. And his chemistry with Josh Johnson, I thought, really showed in the second half of the season. And now Josh is off to the NFL and I think he'll have success there. But now they have to find another receiver who can do those things and that Davis can have that same relationship with. But they obviously have some good options. But I really was impressed with how Davis carried himself more than anything.
We have a cat sighting, not
one. We just have one cat sighting. We're doing,
and that was very brief. That wasn't even,
She lost interest pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's
He's like, there's not food here for me.
Yeah, no food. She's out of here. About a month ago, you wrote about Philip Montgomery's extension, which I think, if I remember right, happened earlier in the year. But he signed it later, and we were just kind of getting around to having some of those details that we could write about. You like that move?
It's just it's tricky when you have a coach who's nearing the end of a contract. Like, you don't want to send a coach, you would never want to send a coach into the final year of the contract. Like, how could you possibly recruit to that? But if you're not really sure how a season's going to go like this one, it's hard to know exactly what to do. And I think that that's a really tricky decision. And so it didn't surprise me that, you know, they gave him an extension. I just didn't know, okay, are they just going to give him one more year? Like, it just, you don't want to get too caught up in what happened in 2020. Obviously, that was a really good season. It just is, it's kind of odd just to, you know, the way it played out to get to, you know, at some point during the season, it still wasn't signed, and trying to figure out why that was. It was just like a little bit odd to just like have to ask the same questions like on a weekly basis. Okay, what is going on? And then finally, like days before the last game of the regular season, which easily could have been the last game of the season, if not for that comeback at SMU, and not really, you know what's going on. And then to be told, oh yeah, no, that's done. It just played out really strange, I thought, but, you know, ultimately not that surprising for him to get the 2-year extension. And, you know, I think more than anything, like, he runs the program in the way that everyone at Tulsa wants it to be run. Yeah, there have been some, you know, losses that maybe shouldn't have happened, but his record isn't, you know, probably where everyone would like for it to be, including himself. But, you know, I think they're bringing in the type of talent now that they can win games with. Whereas, you know, when he started, they were probably overachieving based on their talent level. So, you know, I think that it's deserved just because they are going to compete with really good teams like, you know, what we saw at Ohio State and Oklahoma State and Cincinnati. I think they're not that far off from being successful. They just at times have to get out of their own way. And that's what makes it frustrating when they get penalties and, you know, just do like knuckleheaded stuff that you're like, if you just would not do that, this would go a lot better for you. But, you know, I feel like, you know, if things can be set up in a way for him to be more successful, if they could have, you know, more fan support and maybe more support from the university, I feel like they're not that far off. And I think they could get to that point where they can, again, contend in the American.
Yep. All right, Kelly, Merry Christmas. Thanks for the knowledge, and we'll talk again next week.
Okay, sounds good.